Coming up on One Detroit Arts and Culture, performances at Marygrove from the Detroit Youth Choir to the Detroit Public Theater, plus one-on-one with the new artistic director of the Michigan Opera Theater, Yuval Sharon, and then the music of Greater Alexander and his house dedicated to lifting other artists. It's all ahead on this One Detroit Arts and Culture.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, MASCO Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. MASCO, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support for this program provided by the Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV,
the KRESGE Foundation, Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. NISSAN Foundation. Ally.
The Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation.
And viewers like you.
I used to bite my tongue and hold for breath, scared to rock the boat and make a mess. So I said quietly, agreed politely. I forgot I had a choice. I let you push me past the breaking point. I stood for nothing, so I fell for everything. You held me down, but I got up, already brushing off the dust. You hear my voice, you hear that sound, like thunder's gonna shake the ground. You held me down.
Big thanks to the Detroit Youth Choir singing Roar. We're going to hear more from them coming up. Hey, One Detroit, I'm Christy McDonald, sitting at my piano, which has been getting a lot of action these days. I've turned to music during the pandemic to calm my nerves. A lot of us turn to arts and music to feed our soul, and that's why we started this show, One Detroit Arts and Culture, to bring you performances and stories and interviews from your favorite arts and culture organizations. It's a way to keep connected during this time. So coming up on the show, a new partnership with the Marygrove Conservancy. Marygrove is acting as a community space for musicians, theaters, and more arts organizations, including a big televised performance from the Detroit Public Theater tonight, right here on Detroit Public Television. We'll have that for you. Plus, the new artistic director of the Michigan Opera Theater, Yuval Sharon, talks with Peter Whorf from WRCJ, and you'll hear the inspiration behind the parking garage opera performance of Twilight Gods and more performance plans. And then,
yeah, let the smoke be cleared away.
the music of Detroit musician Greater Alexander and his new project of an artist residence. You'll hear about it. And then we will wrap it all up with a performance from the Detroit Youth Choir. It is all coming up. But we're starting with my conversation with Rachel Allen, the Chief Operating Officer of the Marygrove Conservancy, and board member Rose DeSloover. They explain how Marygrove is working with local arts organizations during the pandemic to provide performance space and support, as well as connections with the surrounding community.
Talk about how the campus and how Marygrove has changed the way it's interacting with the community when it comes to arts and culture.
I got to the Conservancy in December of 2019, and what a surprise it was, in March for the entire campus to shut down, and for us to really have to reimagine how we would stay connected to the community in such troubling times. And so one of the first things that we started rethinking was how we could continue to make our facilities and our assets available to the community. And so we knew that although students were learning online and traditional schooling was changing, there was still the need for dance classes and other activities such as music and performance. And so we came up with a couple, I think, key ideas that really helped us launch into this space. One was launching our Community Impact Incubator, where we specifically targeted groups who could benefit from the space, even though there was a pandemic. So one organization, for example, is the Detroit Youth Choir. They were able to bring their programming to the Marygrove campus and continue to serve youth, even though, again, everything else was shut down. We also have really partnered with some of our dance and performance groups, making sure that even though, again, the rest of the city had been kind of shut down traditionally, that they could still do those dance classes on the weekends or on nights, just to make sure that youth had that access. And so over the last few months, we've been intentional about pivoting our focus in the arts and cultural space. One, we've committed to enhancing our partnerships, which is something that we're announcing more broadly over the next couple of weeks, but also pivoting to focusing on utilizing our spaces. So the Marygrove Conservancy no longer produces most of its own content, but we're being intentional about partnering with those organizations and then providing them with the facilities to do so.
You know, I think it's really interesting. You talk about this deliberate investment, and that's really what's been going on with Marygrove for years as an anchor in the neighborhood where it's at. Rose, talk to me about some of those decisions that have been made over years to make sure that Marygrove has functioned in the community, in the neighborhood, and had offerings and been really a place where people can go.
Over the years, there have been a lot of projects that have engaged the community. The CALS has gone on for 31 years, so every year we've had an author who has come in and met with students from high schools in Detroit and took on the Institute for Music and Dance, which had been, I think it was started in the 1917s in Detroit, but had moved from one anchor institution to another, and in 2000 it came to Marygrove. So that's another, and that was art, music, dance, theater into the community. We also partnered with University of Detroit Mercy to with their theater program, and they did many productions in the theater at Marygrove. So.
Rachel, take me in on some of those conversations when you're looking to engage with partners and saying, all right, how do we do this now, and what your goal is and what we can offer you, and how that can enhance everything that's happening at Marygrove. Kind of take us into some of those conversations.
So a number of our newest partners, whether they've been media partners or television, are really groups that are interested in kind of helping be alongside the Conservancy as we work to tell our story. Most people aren't aware that arts and culture is just one component of what's happening at the Marygrove campus. We have our P20 partnership where we're in the process of building 3 new schools, and eventually there'll be 1,100 students who are educated on the Marygrove campus. Because of support from our partners and KRESGE, the partners such as Detroit Public Community School District, Starfish Family Services, the University of Michigan, there is, again, just excitement that's happening all across the campus. And so we really wanted to bring in partners that could help us continue to tell that story, because we just think it's unlike anything that's happening like this in the country.
And right after this show, thanks to Marygrove, you'll be able to enjoy some live theater. The Detroit Public Theater's production of From Broadway to Obscurity was performed at Marygrove and recorded by our crew at Detroit Public Television. You'll be able to see it at 8 p.m. right here on Detroit Public TV. It'll be like you're at the theater on your couch. All right, so along the same lines of doing things in a creative way since COVID, the Michigan Opera Theater just finished a run of performances in their parking garage. It was the idea of new artistic director Yuval Sharon. WRCJ's Peter Whorf caught up with Yuval right before the first performance, and they talked about the future of MOT.
In many ways, Twilight Gods is taking opera into kind of an unusual space, not in the normal operatic, the opera house that people are used to. And the Detroit Opera House is a beautiful theater, but because of the pandemic, we're not allowed to gather there and to hear opera, to see opera perform on the stage. So it feels like a very fitting introduction for me to Detroit to present an opera in maybe a more unusual setting, a more everyday setting, namely the Detroit Opera House Parking Center, which is across the street from the Opera House and belongs to the opera. So it feels like a potential for it to be considered a second opera house, in some ways. And what we're doing is doing a performance there that is for groups of 8 cars at a time. And they move through the parking center and move from level to level in that parking center. On each level of the parking center is a scene from Wagner's opera, Twilight of the Gods. And so it culminates, normally the opera is 6 hours. We have an abbreviated version of 60 minutes. And the audience hears all of it on their FM radio, partially because of the safety, to make sure our audience and our artists are safe, but also because it is a very cool experience to be having the sound of FM radio be this transmission device for this live performance.
In preparing for this conversation, I challenged you to prepare your elevator speech for Wagner's Götterdämmerung, fourth of his 4-opera ring cycle magnum opus. So how would you do that?
You mean the full opera? I mean, if it was done in a conventional way, Götterdämmerung, the last piece of Wagner cycle, the full cycle is 16 hours. This is the last of what is a 4-day experience. It's meant to be a totally immersive, transformative experience that tells the story of gods and dwarves and a magical ring that gives power to whoever possesses it, but came at the expense of nature. It was robbed from nature, turned into a ring, and only when that ring gets returned back to nature can there ever be peace in the society that Wagner is depicting. So I think just by the nature of that description of the narration, I think it's very clear why we tell a story like this today. It's a society that has been built so long on violence and greed and deception. And after many generations of that, and watching the effects over many generations of that violence and that hatred, that the only way for things to go is for them to all be basically burned to the ground so that something new can emerge. And I also feel like we're in this inflection point in our own culture now, in which so many of the ways that we have been behaving as a society need to, at the very least, adapt, if not transform completely. And that is also a big part of the story of Götterdämmerung. So it feels very fitting for our time. And I think the notion of telling a story that is so appropriate for 2020 and everything that we're experiencing in 2020, to do it in a way that I hope also provides a sense of hope for the future, for everyone that loves opera, for everyone that wants to see live performance come back again, and for everyone who has been missing that sense of a contact with artists and what art and what artists provide for our society.
Can you give us a quick rundown on some of the performers in the major roles?
Absolutely. I mean, we have a truly all-star cast that is headed in many ways by Christine Goerke, who is the world's leading performer of the character of Brunhilde. In many ways, she was the anchor for me in terms of making this production and choosing the Wagner opera. Of course, we could have done kind of anything in that parking center, and I think it would have been compelling and different and exciting. But when I knew about Christine's deep connection to Detroit and her own previous performances at Michigan Opera Theater and her love of this particular community and her interest in coming back, certainly while many of her other roles were canceled in major opera houses, it seemed like a great opportunity to collaborate with her on something that is truly her signature, and this is this role. So it really began with her and thinking that I would just love to hear Christine sing the last scene of the piece on the roof of the parking center. That is, in a way, the grand finale of the performance.
One of the things I love about this show, One Detroit Arts and Culture, is that we're talking to all different kinds of artists and hearing how they're adapting during this time of change. Associate producer Will Glover caught up with musician Greater Alexander, and he fills us in on the artist residence he's creating in Detroit called Greater Impact House.
Yeah, let the smoke be cleared away. Invite another present day, and let the darkness lead the way. When darkest hours make you stray. Ooh.
What is the Greater Impact House? Where is it? What's the idea behind it?
Yeah, so essentially it's going to be an artist residency where I'm sort of your host. Kind of like think of like an Airbnb or like a place or a studio that you kind of come to stay and not only observe the artist, but kind of learn from the host as well. And, provide an environment that is almost too surreal, because I'm in the Greater Impact House and is in a very desolate area. And it's also right down the street from downtown. Like you can walk to Motown Museum, but at the same time you see just how much of the infrastructure of Detroit still needs work. And it's not that I'm trying to save a part of the city either. I'm just trying to provide what's available. And at the same time, if I can get you into the environment and then give you some organizational skills and just stuff that I've learned in the last 40 years that has enhanced my experience of living, then why not?
It's not a rehabilitation house or anything like that. You take in a property in Detroit, and it's a house that you're renovating, and the goal is to be able to have artists, apply to be a resident, so they'll live in the house for however long, and then when they do that, that's when you're saying they can learn from you, learn how to grow as an artist, and you're just trying to provide this surreal and healthy environment for that, correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Once this house is finished, how will artists who are at that point where they're serious about what they want to do, they want an environment they can learn and grow in, how can they apply to be a part of the Greater Impact House? And when do you think that might, be able to happen for some people?
Sure. Well, if the resources come in, like I imagine they're going to come in, then it could probably be potentially by the end of 2021. And we're going to do as much as we can to get as many grants as possible, or, who knows, maybe I might just get that one licensing placement that lands everything for a contract. But until that happens, I'm still at the helms of asking for, donations and service, and whatever anybody can provide to get the resources of income so that I can continue the process of building.
So for anyone who might be watching, where could they go if they wanted to, help in some way to support, the mission of the Greater Impact House?
Yeah, so that's just greaterimpacthouse.com/rewards. You can support as little as $1 and you're getting 80 songs and 80 pieces of art that I've been trying to create since the coronavirus pandemic. And that was like my last, okay, the campaign was supposed to release in March, and I can't do that. So what can I do? So I just started creating a minute of melody every day.
How important is music to the country right now through your lens, with everything that's going on, from the pandemic to the country trying to grapple with systemic racism?
Sure. I mean, music, that's the deepest penetrator of it, gets to the soul, so if you're not listening or having trouble comprehending something, then the answer could be received through music. And being just, one small blip of that, for as far as providing something to raise awareness within somebody, then that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to just be a creative alongside other creatives and transmute this systematic issue that's been compounded for centuries. A lot of people just don't realize that Black lives never mattered. We've had this issue, and Detroit is actually a very huge force of showing you that. when you start like seeing that reflected into Detroit, you can see why the city needs or would love the idea of being hugged. And if you can do it with music, then do it with music, you know?
And let the darkness lead the way. When darkest hours make you stray. Your essence feel its path. Internal guidance shines and lasts. So let the smoke be cleared away, and soon you'll see the present day. With every breath the sun will rise. With every breath the sun will set. So let your actions lead your heart, and let your mind be laid to rest.
All right, for more on the artist residency, just head to our website at onedetroitpbs.org. And a quick reminder that right after this show at 8 p.m., just a couple of minutes from now, the Detroit Public Theater's production of From Broadway to Obscurity. All right, we always like to end the show with a performance to kind of send you off with a moment of zen. So here's the Detroit Youth Choir performing Katy Perry's Roar. They recorded this at Marygrove. Enjoy it, and I'll see you next week. Take care.
I used to bite my tongue and hope for breath, scared to rock the boat and make a mess. So I sat quietly, agreed politely. I forgot I had a choice. I let you push me past the breaking point. I stood for nothing, so I fell for everything.
You held me down, but I got up, already brushing off the dust. You hear my voice, you hear that sound, like thunder's gonna shake the ground. You held me down, but I got up. Get ready, 'cause I had enough. I see it.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.
From Delta faucets to Behr paint, MASCO Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. MASCO, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support for this program provided by the Cynthia and Etzel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV,
the KRESGE Foundation, Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. NISSAN Foundation. Ally.
The Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation.
And viewers like you.